The Secret Chamber, Vatican's Forbidden Discoveries. Professor Elena Rossi still remembers the weight of that moment. As one of the world's leading experts in medieval religious manuscripts, she had examined countless historical documents throughout her career. But nothing had prepared her for what awaited behind those ancient doors. "We were a team of 7 scholars, carefully selected from different universities," she recalls, her voice slightly trembling even now. "Before entering, Vatican officials made us sign multiple non-disclosure agreements. They confiscated our phones, cameras, even our watches. The level of security was unlike anything I'd ever experienced in academic research." It was March 2018 when the Vatican, under increasing pressure from an international coalition of historians, finally granted limited access to a section of the Apostolic Archives that had remained sealed for centuries. What was meant to be a controlled disclosure turned into something far more significant. "They called it Section 12 Alpha," Professor Rossi continues. "Our Vatican guide, Monsignor Bianchi, was visibly nervous. He kept checking his special access card as we descended deeper beneath St. Peter's Basilica, passing through security checkpoints that seemed more appropriate for a military installation than a religious archive. What the team discovered in those dimly lit chambers would challenge conventional understandings of history, religion, and perhaps even human origins. Documents dating back to the early centuries of Christianity contained information that contradicted official church narratives. Ancient artifacts, carefully preserved in climate-controlled cases, exhibited properties that defied scientific explanation. "The first thing that struck me was the organization," Rossi explains. "This wasn't some forgotten storage room. These archives were meticulously maintained, cataloged with a system more advanced than many modern libraries. Whoever was overseeing this collection had been doing so with extraordinary care for centuries. For 500 years, the Vatican has guarded some of the world's most profound secrets behind thick walls and elaborate security systems. The official line has always been one of preservation and protection, safeguarding delicate historical documents from deterioration. But the reality appears far more complex. Why now? Why, after centuries of secrecy, would the Vatican begin to open these vaults? Some speculate it's due to internal power shifts within the church hierarchy. Others point to the increasing impossibility of keeping secrets in our digital age. Whistleblowers and leaked documents have put tremendous pressure on the Vatican to become more transparent. "There was a moment I'll never forget," Professor Rossi says, her academic composure momentarily cracking. "Monsignor Bianchi received a call and had to step away. Another scholar on our team, Dr. Keller, noticed a door with unusual markings. It wasn't on our authorized access list, but we found it unlocked." What lay beyond that unexpected entrance would change everything. A small chamber, its walls lined with shelves containing scrolls and codices far older than anything they had been authorized to view. And at the center, a glass case containing what appeared to be a manuscript with pages made of an unknown material. Not papyrus, not parchment, something altogether different. We only had about 3 minutes in that room before Monsignor Bianchi returned, visibly alarmed. We were immediately escorted out, our notes confiscated. 2 days later, our access was completely revoked. Dr. Keller attempted to speak publicly about what we'd seen and subsequently lost his university position. The official explanation cited academic misconduct, but those of us who were there know the truth. The Vatican's secret archives span more than 50 miles of shelving and contain documents dating back to the 8th century. While portions have been made accessible to researchers, vast sections remain classified. What are they hiding? And more importantly, why? As we delve deeper into these forbidden discoveries, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The history we've been taught may be just the surface of a much deeper, more unsettling truth. What Professor Rossi and her colleagues glimpsed in those few unauthorized minutes has set in motion a chain of revelations that continues to unfold to this day. The doors to the Vatican's most closely guarded secrets have been cracked open, and what lies beyond challenges everything we thought we knew. The Apostolic Archives, centuries of hidden knowledge. The Vatican Secret Archives, officially renamed the Vatican Apostolic Archives in 2019, represents one of the most extensive and mysterious collections of historical documents in the world. Established officially in 1612 by Pope Paul V, these archives have been the silent witnesses to centuries of world-changing events, papal decisions, and religious controversies. What most people don't understand is the sheer scale, explains Dr. Marco Valerio, a historian who has spent decades studying Vatican documents. We're talking about 53 miles of shelving containing records spanning more than 12 centuries. The oldest document dates back to the end of the 8th century, but there are persistent rumors of even older materials kept in restricted sections. The archives are housed in a fortified building behind the Vatican Library, adjacent to the Vatican Museums. While parts were opened to qualified researchers in 1881 by Pope Leo XIII, vast sections remain off-limits to outside scholars. The stated reason is preservation. Many documents are extremely fragile, but this explanation has never fully satisfied academic curiosity. Among Vatican insiders, whispers persist about a highly classified area known as Chamber 77, or Sala 77. This room reportedly houses documents of such sensitivity that fewer than 5 people in each papal administration are granted access. The chamber's existence was inadvertently confirmed in 2014 when an internal Vatican security document was leaked, referring to special protocols for this location. I've spent my career studying the accessible portions of the archives, says Professor Catherine Dunlap of Oxford University, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that what we're allowed to see has been carefully curated. There are conspicuous gaps in the records, entire years missing from otherwise meticulous chronological collections. This suggests a deliberate selection process regarding what scholars are permitted to examine. In recent years, information has emerged about a specialized Vatican department unofficially known as the Heritage Protection Section, Sezione di Protezione del Patrimonio. This small group of experts, combining skills in archival science, conservation, linguistics, and security, is tasked with maintaining the most sensitive documents and artifacts in the Vatican's possession. They're essentially archival special forces, says former Vatican employee Giuseppe Martelli, who worked in document conservation for 15 years. They operate with direct papal authority, outside the normal bureaucratic channels. I've seen them only twice in my career. Once when they removed an entire collection of medieval manuscripts from our department without explanation, and once during a security breach when they appeared within minutes before the regular security personnel had even been notified. Among the most significant revelations to emerge from limited archive access are previously unknown letters from Galileo Galilei during his heresy trial. These documents, only partially released to researchers, reveal a more complex relationship between the scientist and church authorities than commonly portrayed. In some letters, Galileo expresses confidence that certain high-ranking church officials secretly supported his work while publicly condemning it, suggesting a level of internal division within the Vatican power structure that has been largely absent from historical accounts. Another controversial collection concerns Pope Pius XII and his actions during World War II. For decades, scholars have debated whether the pontiff did enough to oppose Nazi atrocities. When the Vatican finally opened these records in March 2020, researchers discovered evidence of both behind-the-scenes efforts to save Jewish lives and troubling instances of diplomatic caution that may have hampered more decisive action. What's fascinating isn't just what the documents contain, notes Holocaust historian Dr. Rebecca Goldstein, but the evidence of careful curation. Some files show signs of having been reorganized decades after the events they describe. Certain pages have different aging patterns than others in the same folder, suggesting later insertions or replacements. The archives themselves tell a story beyond the content, a story of how history has been managed. Perhaps most intriguing are the indications of secret meetings between Vatican officials and world leaders during critical historical junctures. A partially declassified ledger reveals that during the height of the Cold War, at least 3 undisclosed meetings occurred between Pope John XIII and Soviet representatives, completely absent from official diplomatic records of either the Vatican or the USSR. The contrast between the Vatican's official narratives and the documentary evidence creates a compelling tension. While church authorities present the archives as a treasure trove of historical preservation, the selective access and apparent manipulation of certain collections suggests something more calculated. There's a pattern that emerges when you study the accessible sections of the archives long enough, says Dr. Valerio. Certain topics trigger immediate restrictions: early Christian theological disputes, specific papal bloodlines, documents relating to the Knights Templar, and anything concerning what they call anomalous artifacts, objects in the Vatican's possession that don't fit conventional historical or archaeological frameworks. In 2017, a small fire in an archive antechamber led to an unexpected discovery. As restoration workers repaired minor smoke damage, they uncovered a hidden door behind a bookcase, an entrance to a small room containing a specialized card catalog unlike the main archival system. Though Vatican officials quickly secured the area, several workers reported seeing index cards with unusual classifications, including one labeled Testimonium, with apparent references to non-canonical accounts of early Christian events. The archives aren't just repositories of information, concludes Professor Dunlap. They're instruments of power. Throughout history, controlling information has been as important as controlling territory. What we're seeing now, with these partial revelations, may be less about transparency and more about controlled disclosure, revealing enough to satisfy public pressure while maintaining the deepest secrets intact. As we continue our exploration of the Vatican's hidden knowledge, we move beyond the administrative structure of the archives to examine the most remarkable artifacts and documents they protect, objects whose very existence challenges conventional understanding of history, religion, and perhaps reality itself. The countdown: 10 artifacts that defy explanation. Beneath the magnificent dome of St. Peter's Basilica lies a labyrinth of history. Not all Vatican treasures are displayed in museums. Some remain hidden, accessible only to a select few. Each artifact we're about to explore represents not just a historical curiosity, but a potential turning point in our understanding of the past. As we count down from 10 to 1, each revelation builds upon the last, suggesting connections that, when viewed together, hint at a larger, more profound truth. The suppressed codex. In 2012, a restoration project in the Vatican Library uncovered a previously unknown manuscript wedged behind a section of shelving. The document, now referred to as Codex Secretus, contains what appears to be a variation of the Gospel of Mark, with significant theological differences from the canonical version. What makes this codex extraordinary isn't just its content, explains Dr. Sophia Patel, who was granted limited access to study the document. Carbon dating places it in the late 1st century, potentially earlier than our oldest known gospel manuscripts. More troubling for church authorities is that it contains passages describing Jesus discussing knowledge not meant for all ears and references to celestial beings, who provided teachings beyond what's recorded in canonical texts. According to Dr. Patel, the Vatican has restricted access to the codex, citing its fragile condition. However, leaked photographs reveal a remarkably well-preserved document, raising questions about the true reasons for its limited accessibility. The Michelangelo Chamber. Hidden beneath the Medici Chapel in Florence, a secret room was discovered in 1975, containing charcoal sketches believed to be by Michelangelo himself. While this finding has been partially publicized, what remains less known is the Vatican's involvement in controlling access to this chamber. The room was actually discovered twice, reveals Italian art historian Antonio Ferrara. The first time was in 1938, during Mussolini's regime. Vatican representatives immediately intervened, resealed the chamber, and documentation was suppressed. Only when it was rediscovered, in 1975, did it become public knowledge. The most intriguing aspect isn't the sketches themselves, but what they suggest about Michelangelo's hidden knowledge. Several drawings depict anatomical details that wouldn't be scientifically confirmed until centuries later, including accurate representations of specific brain structures. Other sketches show architectural designs incorporating mathematical principles considered advanced even by modern standards. The Vatican maintains a special agreement with Italian authorities regarding this chamber, Ferrara notes. Certain portions remain off-limits, and specific drawings have never been photographed or reproduced. The astronomical anomaly. The Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope, located in Arizona, is officially dedicated to astronomical research. Less well known is a classified project initiated in 1996 focused on monitoring a specific area of space near the Pleiades star cluster. Dr. Elena Rossi, who temporarily worked with the Vatican Observatory, recalls, "There was an entire section of the facility we were told was undergoing renovation. One night, I accidentally entered this area looking for a colleague. What I saw was a sophisticated tracking system focused on a region of space that, according to conventional astronomy, contains nothing of particular interest." Records leaked in 2017 reveal that the Vatican has maintained continuous observation of this celestial region for over 25 years, an extraordinary dedication of resources for an ostensibly empty section of space. More intriguing is the correlation between increased activity in this monitoring program and the Vatican's periodic retrieval of specific ancient documents from their archives. The chronovisor controversy. In the 1950s, Italian priest and scientist Father Pellegrino Ernetti claimed to have helped develop a device called a chronovisor that could view events from the past. While most dismissed his claims as fantasy, recently declassified Vatican documents reveal that the Church took his work seriously enough to confiscate all his research materials upon his death in 1994. The chronovisor story is typically presented as a curious footnote in Vatican history, says technological historian Dr. James Werner. But internal documents show that between 1957 and 1972, the Vatican allocated significant funding to a research group called Proyecto Chronovisione, under the direction of Cardinal Francesco Periconi. The project was abruptly terminated and all records sealed by direct papal order. Most startling are references in these documents to successful temporal observations and strict protocols for handling information obtained through these alleged viewings of historical events. Whether the technology actually worked remains unproven, but the Vatican's reaction suggests either genuine concern or extraordinary caution about Ernetti's claims. The classified necropolis. Beneath St. Peter's Basilica lies the Vatican necropolis, partially open to limited public tours. What visitors don't see is a sealed section discovered during excavations in the 1940s, which has remained off-limits for over 80 years. Archaeological researcher Maria Gomez states, "The official explanation is that this section is too structurally fragile for visitors. However, leaked ground-penetrating radar scans from 2010 show that this area is actually in better condition than parts currently on the tour route." According to Vatican insider reports, this restricted section contains burial chambers with unusual characteristics, including inscriptions combining early Christian symbols with iconography previously unknown in religious contexts. Most concerning to church authorities were tombs containing physical remains with unexplained anomalies that defied conventional medical explanation. The Vatican commissioned 3 separate scientific teams to study these remains between 1949 and 1953, Gomez explains. All research materials were subsequently classified, and team members required to sign extraordinary confidentiality agreements, extending even beyond their deaths. The Leonardo prophecies. Leonardo da Vinci's connection to the Vatican was always complicated, but recent discoveries suggest a more profound relationship than previously known. In 2016, advanced imaging techniques revealed hidden text in the margins of Leonardo's Codex Arundel, tiny notes written in his characteristic mirror script, but previously invisible to the naked eye. These notes detail Leonardo's apparent access to Vatican documents that gave him insights into advanced scientific principles. More troublingly, they contain accurate predictions of future technological developments, including concepts remarkably similar to modern telecommunications and aviation. Dr. Alessandro Venturi, who participated in the imaging project, explains, "What we found was so unsettling that 3 team members refused to continue." Leonardo describes not only concepts centuries ahead of his time, but makes reference to specific historical events that occurred long after his death. Either he possessed remarkable predictive abilities, or he had access to knowledge that shouldn't have existed in his era. The Vatican responded to these findings by acquiring full control of the original manuscript, citing preservation concerns. Independent researchers now have access only to pre-2016 scans of the document, which don't show the hidden text. The Fatima controversy. The story of the 1917 Marian apparitions at Fatima, Portugal, is well known among Catholics. 3 children claimed to receive prophecies from the Virgin Mary, including a famous third secret that was kept undisclosed by the Vatican until 2000. What most people don't realize is that significant evidence suggests the published third secret is incomplete. Sister Lucia, the last surviving visionary, maintained correspondence with multiple Vatican officials until her death in 2005. According to former Vatican archivist Monsignor Vincenzo Tagliaferri, there exists a second portion of the third secret, a content so disturbing that Pope John XXIII decided it should never be released. I personally catalogued Sister Lucia's letters, Tagliaferri stated in a 2018 interview, shortly before his unexpected death. There are explicit references to an apocalyptic vision involving a fallen pillar of the Church and bishops against bishops. Most troubling was her consistent reference to a timeline, which, if accurate, places these prophesied events in our immediate future. The Vatican has consistently denied the existence of any undisclosed portion of the Fatima revelations. However, visitors to Sister Lucia's room after her death reported evidence of removed documents and signs of hasty inspection. The genetic anomaly. In 2001, the Vatican authorized limited DNA analysis of preserved blood samples from reported miraculous events. The research was conducted under strict confidentiality by geneticist Dr. Robert Markovich and his team from the University of Uppsala. What was intended as a scientific investigation into potential fraud became something far more perplexing. Our initial assumption was that we'd find normal human blood or chemical substitutes, Dr. Markovich explained in private notes later acquired by investigative journalists. Instead, we identified genetic sequences that don't correspond to any known species. Further analysis showed impossible structural stability. These blood samples should have degraded over time, but instead maintained their integrity as if they existed outside normal temporal constraints. The Vatican immediately terminated the research when preliminary findings were reported, confiscated all samples and data, and required comprehensive non-disclosure agreements. Dr. Markovich's subsequent attempts to publish even theoretical papers based on this research were blocked through unprecedented legal interventions. The quantum artifact. In the sub-basement of the Vatican Museum's conservation department lies a secured vault containing what internal documents refer to only as the anomaly. First documented in 1781, this metallic object approximately the size of a grapefruit was found during excavations beneath the Vatican gardens. The artifact defies conventional analysis. It maintains a constant temperature regardless of environmental conditions, demonstrates unexpected gravitational properties, and, most remarkably, appears to affect the flow of time in its immediate vicinity. Modern instruments detect measurable time dilation within a 3-meter radius of the object. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a quantum physicist who was granted brief access in 2019, reported, "Whatever this object is, it operates on principles that contradict our current understanding of physics. Its composition includes elements arranged in configurations that should be impossible according to our models of atomic structure. Most disturbing is its apparent response to conscious observation. It demonstrates measurably different properties depending on who is studying it." The Vatican has never publicly acknowledged the artifact's existence. When questioned, officials consistently refer to routine conservation materials in the secured area. However, energy consumption records for the containment room reveal extraordinary power requirements, and specialized equipment deliveries from leading quantum research facilities have been documented as recently as 2023. The Continuity Protocol. The Continuity Protocol. At the heart of Vatican secrecy lies what insiders call the Continuity Protocol, an unbroken tradition dating back to the Church's earliest days. Each pope is briefed on information so sensitive that it is never committed to writing, passed only through direct oral transmission from one pontiff to the next. According to a deathbed confession from Monsignor Paolo Sbriglia, who served as personal secretary to Pope John Paul I, who died after only 33 days as pope, this protocol contains information that would fundamentally alter humanity's perception of its origins and destiny. The burden of this knowledge, Sbriglia reportedly said, was visible in the Holy Father's face after his briefing. He told me, "The Church has carried this truth for centuries, not to hide it from the faithful, but to protect them from it until humanity is ready." Most startling are the connections between this secretive tradition and the other artifacts in our countdown. Analysis of Vatican security protocols reveals that during each papal transition, all 10 of these items are brought together in a ceremony that has no official record. What links these artifacts? What truth could be so profound that the Vatican has maintained extraordinary measures to control it for centuries? As we examine the 3 most disturbing discoveries in the next section, a pattern begins to emerge, one that suggests our understanding of history, religion, and perhaps reality itself may be built on incomplete foundations. Dr. Elena Rossi perhaps summarized it best. These aren't just historical curiosities or religious relics. Together, they form a mosaic suggesting an alternative narrative of human history, one the Vatican has deemed too destabilizing for public consciousness. The question isn't just what they're hiding, but why they believe we need to be protected from this knowledge. Beyond the artifacts we've explored lies a deeper level of Vatican secrecy, discoveries so profound that knowledge of them is restricted to the highest echelons of church authority. These 3 revelations, each disturbing in its own right, form a triangle of interconnected evidence, pointing toward a conclusion that challenges the very foundations of human understanding. The Palimpsest of Alexandria. In 2014, Vatican conservators were examining what appeared to be a routine medieval prayer book when ultraviolet scanning revealed an underlying text, a palimpsest, where the original writing had been erased and the parchment reused. This was not uncommon in medieval times, but what they found beneath the surface sent shockwaves through the small group of authorized researchers. The underlying text was not medieval at all, explains Dr. Hannah Cohen, one of the few scholars granted brief access to the document. It appears to be a previously unknown 1st century manuscript, potentially from the famous Library of Alexandria before its destruction. The text describes what the writer calls the custodians, entities that have supposedly guided human development throughout history. Most troubling was the manuscript's detailed knowledge of historical events that occurred centuries after it was written. It described a sequence of civilizational collapses and rebirths spanning thousands of years, including specific events matching known history but extending far earlier than conventional archaeological timelines. The text refers to at least 3 previous advanced human civilizations that rose and fell before our recorded history. Dr. Cohen continues, "It describes technologies and scientific principles we've only discovered in the modern era. Either this is an elaborate hoax or it represents evidence that human history is far more complex than we've understood." The Vatican's response was swift and severe. The entire conservation team was disbanded, and all researchers were required to sign unprecedented confidentiality agreements. Dr. Cohen herself was initially forbidden from leaving Italy, and her academic position was threatened when she attempted to discuss even the existence of the document. Advanced radioisotope testing, conducted before the Vatican halted all research, confirmed the parchment's age at approximately 1,900 years old. The ink composition contained elements not used in writing materials until the 20th century, creating a paradox that defies conventional explanation. What makes this discovery particularly significant is how it aligns with physical evidence found in the Vatican's archaeological collections, artifacts showing technological sophistication that shouldn't have existed in ancient times. Dr. Samuel Martinez, an archaeologist who consulted on the project, notes, "We've long had anomalous artifacts that don't fit our understanding of technological development. Ancient batteries, precision-cut stones, mechanisms like the Antikythera device. This manuscript provides a theoretical framework that would explain these anomalies, suggesting cycles of advanced civilization and collapse that have been systematically erased from our historical record. The Quantum Reliquary. Beneath the Basilica of St. John Lateran, the official ecclesiastical seat of the Pope, lies a sealed chamber that doesn't appear on any official Vatican blueprint. Referenced only in classified documents as the reliquary, this room contains what might be the most scientifically inexplicable object in the Church's possession. Dr. Victor Ramirez, a quantum physicist who served as a scientific consultant to the Vatican between 2016 and 2019, describes what he witnessed. They called it the convergence, a crystalline structure about 60 centimeters in height that, according to their records, has been in the Church's possession since at least 318 CE. What makes it extraordinary is its quantum behavior. According to Dr. Ramirez, the crystal demonstrates properties that defy our current understanding of physics. It appears to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously, a phenomenon normally only observable at the subatomic level, not in macroscopic objects. When measured with quantum sensors, the object displays entanglement patterns that suggest connection with similar structures elsewhere, possibly not even on Earth. More disturbing were the temporal anomalies. Highly sensitive atomic clocks showed measurable time dilation effects near the artifact, and imaging technology revealed what appeared to be scenes from different historical periods visible within the crystal structure itself. The Vatican has devoted enormous resources to studying this object, establishing a classified research facility beneath the public areas of Vatican City. Equipment deliveries tracked by investigative journalists include advanced quantum computing components, specialized containment systems, and radiation shielding far beyond what would be needed for conventional research. What scared me wasn't just the object's impossible properties, Dr. Ramirez continues. It was the Vatican's approach. They weren't surprised by what we were finding. Their questions, their protocols. They clearly had prior knowledge about how this thing works. They weren't discovering, they were confirming. The connection between this artifact and religious doctrine remains unclear, but historical records suggest it may have influenced early Christian cosmology. Ancient texts describing the hierarchy of angels and the structure of heaven bear striking similarities to quantum mechanical principles that wouldn't be discovered scientifically until the 20th century. When modern imaging technology was applied to Renaissance religious paintings in the Vatican collection, researchers discovered hidden geometric patterns in numerous works that mirror the internal structure of the crystal, suggesting secret knowledge shared among elite artists and church authorities across centuries. The Genome Project. Perhaps the most disturbing of all Vatican secrets involves human genetics and the true origins of our species. In 2003, as the Human Genome Project neared completion, the Vatican established its own parallel genetic research program, operating under the innocuous name the Humanity Heritage Initiative. Dr. Elise Laurent, a geneticist who worked on both projects, reveals, while the public Human Genome Project mapped the standard human genome, the Vatican's initiative focused on anomalies, genetic sequences that didn't fit expected patterns. They were particularly interested in what we call junk DNA, non-coding sequences that make up a significant portion of our genome. According to Dr. Laurent, the Vatican had access to genetic samples of extraordinary historical significance, including authenticated blood relics from significant religious figures and preserved tissue from ancient burial sites normally inaccessible to scientific researchers. What they found was deeply troubling, she explains. Certain genetic sequences appeared to have been inserted into the human genome at specific points in our evolutionary history, sudden accelerations in complexity that don't follow the gradual pattern we would expect from natural evolution. Even more concerning were sequences that contain what appear to be syntactic patterns, as if they were designed to function like code or language. The implications are profound. If certain aspects of human genetics show signs of deliberate engineering rather than natural evolution, it raises fundamental questions about our origins and development as a species. When these genetic findings are viewed alongside archaeological anomalies, and the information contained in the Alexandria palimpsest, a disturbing pattern emerges, one suggesting external intervention in human development throughout our history. The Church's interest isn't just scientific curiosity. Dr. Laurent notes, these genetic patterns appear to correlate with key moments in religious history. Major leaps in genetic complexity align chronologically with events described in religious texts as divine interventions across multiple faith traditions. The Vatican's genetic research facility, housed beneath the Pontifical Academy of Sciences, continues to operate under extraordinary security protocols. Satellite imagery shows unusual power consumption and specialized cooling systems consistent with advanced genetic sequencing technology. When questioned about this facility, Vatican officials consistently reference medical research for humanitarian purposes. However, testimonies from former security personnel describe measures more appropriate for a high-security biocontainment facility, including biometric access controls and emergency destruction protocols. The convergence of evidence. When examined individually, each of these discoveries could perhaps be explained away or dismissed. But together, they form an interconnected web of evidence pointing toward a conclusion so profound that it challenges the fundamental narratives of both science and religion. Professor James Holden, a historian of science who has studied the Vatican's research activities for decades, explains, "We're seeing a pattern where religious institutions, particularly the Vatican, have preserved and studied evidence that doesn't fit either conventional scientific understanding or traditional religious doctrine. It's as if they've been custodians of a third perspective on human existence, one they've deemed too disruptive to share widely." The traditional conflict between science and religion takes on new dimensions when we consider what these discoveries suggest: that both modern scientific understanding and conventional religious teaching may represent incomplete perspectives on a more complex reality. The opposition between church authorities and scientific researchers appears to break down at the highest levels. Documents obtained through Freedom of Information requests reveal classified meetings between Vatican officials and senior scientists from space agencies, quantum research facilities, and genomic institutions. Collaborative efforts conducted away from public and media scrutiny. What we're potentially looking at, Professor Holden concludes, is evidence that human history, consciousness, and even our genetic makeup have been influenced by forces beyond our conventional understanding. The philosophical and theological implications are staggering. It's not just about what happened in our past, it's about what we are as a species and what our future might hold. As we explore the final piece of this puzzle, the consequences of these revelations becoming widely known, we must consider why the Vatican has maintained such extraordinary secrecy. Is it purely about maintaining religious authority, or does it reflect a genuine concern about humanity's psychological readiness to confront a reality far different from what we've believed? The answer may lie in the final section of our investigation, and in the fate of those who have attempted to bring these secrets into the light. The Keepers of Truth, Consequences and Revelations. The disturbing pattern of disappearances began in late 2019. Dr. Michael Chen, a quantum physicist who had consulted on the Vatican's reliquary research, vanished while attending a conference in Geneva. His hotel room was found immaculate, no signs of struggle, all personal belongings in place, except for his research notebook. Swiss authorities classified it as an unexplained disappearance, but colleagues noted his increasing anxiety in the weeks before. Michael told me he'd found a mathematical connection between the quantum properties of the Vatican artifact and certain astronomical phenomena, recalls Dr. Sophia Kazan, a former colleague. The night before he disappeared, he called me sounding both exhilarated and terrified. He said, "It's all connected. The genetics, the artifacts, the historical anomalies. They're not separate mysteries, they're different aspects of the same revelation." Chen isn't the only researcher to vanish. In the past 5 years, at least 7 scientists, historians, and archaeologists connected to these Vatican discoveries have disappeared or died under questionable circumstances. Official investigations consistently reach inconclusive findings, and in each case, research materials have gone missing. What are we to make of this pattern? Are these the actions of a religious institution desperately protecting its authority, or something more complex? Evidence suggests the latter, a coordinated effort involving multiple global organizations, not just the Vatican. Professor Elena Rossi, whose experience began our investigation, describes a shadowy network that transcends religious boundaries. What we're dealing with isn't just Catholic secrecy. I've identified collaborative efforts between the Vatican, certain government agencies, scientific institutions, and even representatives from other major religions. They operate through a foundation called the Continuity Institute, established in 1956 with an ambiguous humanitarian mission. Financial records reveal that this institute receives funding from diverse sources: religious organizations across multiple faiths, private technology companies, and through indirect channels linked to various national security agencies. Their activities include acquiring historically significant artifacts, sponsoring specialized archaeological expeditions, and maintaining high-security storage facilities on 3 continents. They're not destroying information, Rossi emphasizes. They're preserving it, studying it, but controlling who has access. The question is, why maintain such extraordinary secrecy if their intentions are benign? A potential answer emerged in 2021 when an anonymous whistleblower released what became known as the Custodian Memo, an internal document allegedly from the Continuity Institute outlining their philosophical position. While its authenticity remains unverified, its contents align disturbingly well with observed patterns. Human civilization exists in a delicate psychological equilibrium, with societal stability dependent on shared narratives about our origins, purpose, and place in the cosmos. Premature exposure to certain realities about human history and our relationship with external intelligences would destabilize this equilibrium, potentially triggering civilizational collapse, as witnessed in previous cycles. Our mission is preservation, not just of knowledge, but of humanity's capacity to integrate this knowledge without self-destruction. If this document is genuine, it suggests something profound, that the secretive network spanning religious and scientific institutions believes humanity has faced these revelations before, with catastrophic results. Dr. James Werner, a historian specializing in societal collapses, finds this plausible. Throughout history, we see civilizations that reached impressive technological sophistication before suddenly disappearing. Conventional explanations cite environmental factors or resource depletion, but they don't fully account for the psychological abandonment of advanced knowledge we sometimes observe in the archaeological record, as if certain societies chose to forget their own achievements. The implications extend beyond historical curiosity. If the Vatican and its partners are indeed keepers of knowledge, deemed too disruptive for general awareness, what does this tell us about our current civilization's trajectory? The pattern in their security protocols is revealing, notes former intelligence analyst Rebecca Chen. They've established knowledge containment systems that could survive major societal disruptions: hardened facilities, non-digital preservation methods, training programs that pass information through direct mentorship rather than institutional documentation. They're preparing for potential collapse while preserving critical knowledge for a future rebuilding phase. This brings us to the most disturbing question. What could be so fundamentally challenging about these discoveries that multiple global institutions would collaborate to control access to them? The answer may lie in what Professor Rossi glimpsed in that unauthorized chamber. Evidence that human consciousness, civilization, and perhaps even our genetic development have been guided by external intelligences throughout history. Not as a single intervention, but as an ongoing process spanning thousands of years and continuing into the present. The traditional religious concept of divine guidance and the ancient astronaut theory of extraterrestrial intervention may both be incomplete perspectives on a more complex relationship, suggests theological researcher Dr. Nathan Abrams. The evidence points to something more nuanced, a continuous relationship between humanity and advanced intelligences that defies our categories of natural versus supernatural. If true, this would challenge the fundamental assumptions of both scientific materialism and traditional religious doctrine. It would suggest that human autonomy and development have been influenced to a degree that might be psychologically devastating to our self-conception as a species. The final piece of this puzzle emerged unexpectedly in April 2023, when astronomers at multiple observatories detected an anomalous signal originating from the precise region of space that the Vatican telescope has monitored for decades. The scientific community described it as an unusual stellar phenomenon, but internal Vatican communications, obtained through an anonymous source, used very different terminology: confirmation of anticipated cyclic contact. Within days of this astronomical event, security at Vatican archival facilities was dramatically increased. Satellite imagery showed unusual activity at Continuity Institute sites worldwide. Something had changed in their operational posture, a shift from preservation to preparation. Professor Rossi, who has lived under pseudonyms since her unauthorized access to Vatican materials, offered this final observation in our most recent communication. What I initially perceived as a historical cover-up now appears to be preparation for a future event. The Vatican and its partners aren't just hiding what was, they're preparing for what's coming. The question isn't just what they know about our past, but what they anticipate for our future. As our investigation concludes, we're left with more questions than answers. If these institutions are indeed keepers of profound truths about human existence, are they protectors or obstacles? Is humanity better served by controlled revelation or by transparent access to our own history? What seems increasingly clear is that the traditional boundaries between science, religion, and mysticism break down at the highest levels of knowledge. Those with access to the deepest truths appear to recognize a reality more complex than any single doctrine or discipline can encompass. The Vatican's secret vaults contain more than historical curiosities or religious relics. They may hold keys to understanding human consciousness, our place in the cosmos, and our collective destiny. Whether humanity is ready for these revelations remains the central question that has guided the Keeper's activities for centuries. As we publish this investigation, we recognize the potential risks. Other journalists and researchers who have ventured this far have encountered obstacles ranging from professional discreditation to more direct interventions. Yet the pattern of evidence has become too compelling to ignore, and the public deserves to participate in what may be the most profound conversation about human existence ever undertaken. What lies in the Vatican's deepest vaults isn't just the past. It's a potential future where humanity's understanding of itself and its place in the cosmos undergoes a transformation more profound than any religious or scientific revolution in our history. The doors have been cracked open. The light is beginning to shine through. What will we discover about ourselves when they finally swing wide? Beyond the allure of conspiracy theories and hidden knowledge lies a deeper truth about our human nature. As we age and accumulate life experience, many of us find ourselves questioning the narratives we've been given about history, about faith, about our place in the cosmos. This questioning isn't mere skepticism. It reflects our profound desire to understand our existence on a deeper level. The search for hidden knowledge, whether in ancient texts, secret archives, or unexplained phenomena, speaks to something fundamentally human: our need to make sense of a complex world. We seek patterns, connections, and meaning in a universe that often seems chaotic and indifferent to our existence. In our daily lives, we all keep certain truths private, experiences too personal to share, insights too profound to articulate, or knowledge we fear others aren't ready to hear. In this way, we are not so different from the institutions we question. We too are keepers of personal archives, selecting what to reveal and what to protect. The most valuable wisdom isn't found in sensational revelations or hidden vaults, but in the patient accumulation of experience and the courage to face life's mysteries with both critical thinking and open-hearted wonder. Whether examining ancient artifacts or navigating our own relationships, the same principles apply. Thoughtful observation, honest questioning, and the humility to recognize that our understanding will always remain incomplete. Perhaps the greatest mystery isn't what institutions might be hiding from us, but what we have yet to discover within ourselves: capacities for compassion, wisdom, and connection that transcend our everyday awareness and connect us to something greater than ourselves. If this exploration of Vatican's secrets and the nature of hidden knowledge has sparked your curiosity, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What mysteries do you believe deserve investigation? Share your perspective in the comments below. To stay updated on our future investigations into historical mysteries and unexplained phenomena, subscribe to our channel. We release new content every Wednesday that challenges conventional understanding and explores the boundaries of known history. If you found value in this video, please consider sharing it with friends and family who appreciate thoughtful explorations of the unexplained. Your support helps us continue producing in-depth content on topics that mainstream media often overlooks. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this journey into the Vatican's most closely guarded secrets. Every like helps our content reach more curious minds.